Welcome. You are listening to Haunted Histories on Paranormal UK Radio. And hello and welcome to another episode of Haunted Histories with yours truly, Penny Griffiths-Morgan, here exclusively for you on Paranormal UK Radio. Now, it's been a weird sort of year so far for, I think, pretty much everyone. I don't think I'm sort of overestimating by saying that. And now all the kids in the UK are starting to go back to school. It's getting a bit weirder with requests from individual schools about hygiene and how to keep them safe and how we're allowed to deliver them to school and pick them up and everything else. But like with everything, we adapt, and I must admit I'm looking forward to getting some routine back in our lives. But who listened to my last podcast, the one I did on the Anzio Army Camp with the wonderful lasses from Lancashire, Pamela and Jeanette, also known as the Spooky Sisters UK? Well, if you've not kept up to date with my Facebook page, you won't know that after that podcast, I got offered the chance to do an investigation at Anzio Camp on Halloween with my good friend Christopher Chell and his group Haunted Houses event. So I'm busy learning some Polish so that I can do some of the experiments I suggested. And if you don't know why I'm learning Polish, you need to listen to the podcast, don't you? And then you'll find out. But I'm very excited about them because that one's been on my to-do list for quite some time. But my guest tonight, well, we've already been having a bit of a giggle off air, so I think there's going to be a bit of laughter in tonight's show for you. So, yes, she was introduced to me by Elijah Buchholz of Apex Paranormal, and his actual words were, "She's a live wire, she'll keep you on your toes." Now, this lady, and she's giggling in the background right now, this lady, honestly, I mean, I've been chatting to her a bit over on Messenger and everything else, and she's made me proper laugh out loud on more than one occasion. So I do hope her energy comes across over this as infectious as it is. But she is the owner of an absolutely stunning property in a place called Atchison in Kansas, and it is the absolutely wonderful Stephanie Neal. How you doing, Steph?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. I'm all right. But yes, we have been having a few giggles already, haven't we? There's been a bit of laughter.
Yes, we have.
Where's your tiara?
Well, it's on my head, of course. I have to this interview.
I have to explain to people the tiara joke. I sent Steph a message earlier today saying, don't worry, it's audio only. And her reply back to me was something about she'd already got her tiara out, which honestly made me snort my drink with laughter. So I thought, that's good. We're going to have a fun interview tonight. But yeah, the McInteer Villa in Atchison in Kansas. I mean, it's a stunning house. By, I suppose, American standards, it's reasonably old. By, I hate to say it, British standards, it's a baby. But it's a stunning property. What on earth possessed you guys to buy it?
The only reason we purchased the McInteer is because it's haunted. It's the only reason.
That's the only reason.
Well, my husband said hell no, and that's the reason.
Oh. So are you Atchison people? Are you from Atchison?
No, I actually grew up in Dallas. My husband grew up in Tulsa, but we lived about an hour and 10 minutes away in Lawrence, Kansas. Mm-hmm. And we were just, I love going to places to ghost hunt, and he likes to just tag along. Mm-hmm. He doesn't ghost hunt. He just keeps me entertained, I guess, or keeps me company. And we were down the street at a different location, and a lady told me that there was a house for sale and it's haunted. Mm-hmm. And my husband said, hell no. And 2.5 years, well, say that was in September of 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. We purchased it January 2018. So just a few short months later.
Wow. I mean, it is stunning. I'd almost want to turn it into a B&B as well, like a haunted B&B to make, something like that, because it looks like it would. I mean, the fact it was a rooming house at one point in its history, correct. Wasn't it?
It was from 24 to 52. Yep.
So in Americans, a rooming house in American it is almost like a lodging house, isn't it? Where people could come and live short, long term.
That's how I understand it. Some articles in the newspaper would say that they would call it an apartment. Mm-hmm. Some called it just renting the room out, renting some space out. So I think they had different terms for it. I just call it a boarding house, a rooming house. Apartment seems more permanent, I guess, mm-hmm. but that's what they call it also.
Okay. Well, let's go back a bit to why it's one thing I want to ask. Is Atchison ain't a big place. I think I checked the census records and they estimate for 2019 it had about 10,500 people living there.
Right.
I have done 3 shows now on different haunting places in Atchison. What is going on there?
I honestly have no idea. Until this house, I've never been into history stuff. So I don't know. I've been told the water, the limestone. I'm not sure. I know that it's, I guess, known as one of the most haunted towns in America.
Yeah.
And we're just a few blocks away from the Sally House. And that's actually where I was staying when I heard about this house. So, mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of haunted locations or places in Atchison.
Yeah.
There's only 2 that allow overnights, but I think there are a lot of haunted buildings and homes here in town.
Definitely. Before we go on, I just want to apologise to everyone if Steph's coming across as a bit crackly. We're recording this through Skype, and Skype it's already crashed on me twice today when I've been trying to do the call. So please excuse the quality. It's not Steph's fault, and it's not my fault. Blame Skype. Okay, blame yes. Skype. But yes, no. I mean, with Atchison, I've done a show on the Sally House. I've done a show on Amelia Earhart. Now I'm doing a show on McIntyre, or McInteer. But it was Elijah who said, honestly, this place has got so many parts to it that seem to have some kind of supernatural sort of paranormal. And it's like, but why? And I mean, I started digging into it, thinking, is there anything I could find? Well, there's no sort of, I always find when I'm looking into American history, when you find a place that seems very active, there's something to do with the Native Americans there. Couldn't find that here. About the only thing I could find is that Kansas in general and Atchison, there was an awful lot of discord during the Civil War. Because Atchison originally was pro-slavery, and then it got taken over to be anti-slavery, and it was where what they now call the Jayhawkers based themselves, and it was also, you also had Quantrill's Raid was in Kansas, just up the road from you guys, wasn't it? And that's the only thing I could find that would. But why would? It's just like, why would this one place have such a concentration of? Unless you're right, unless it's something to do with the stone. It's the obviously you got them. It's the Mississippi runs. Is it the Mississippi that runs past you?
The Missouri River.
The Missouri River. Sorry, yeah.
Yes. Like I said, I am so horrible with history. I am so horrible. But yeah. Well, I'm saying but I don't. I honestly have no idea what made or makes the town so haunted. No idea.
I couldn't find anything that normally with some places, especially places in the States, I found like there's been some massive like event there, or like I say, a lot of them seem to have, a lot of the places I've talked about, there's like a Native American link to it, something horrific happened to them, or and I'd say the only sort of stuff was to do with the Civil War, which isn't exclusive to Atchison or Kansas even. So it's an interesting one as to why or is it are people so more accepting of it because it's known as a haunted town, so therefore when things happen they're like, oh goody, we've got another place we can show people around, sort of thing. It's
yes.
Yeah. So is there much competition between you guys and the Sally House?
I guess it depends on who you ask, but if you ask me, so I guess between the two of us and whoever's listening, I would say no. It's two totally different types of hauntings. It's two totally different types of homes. We do the same thing. We do allow tours. We do overnight. So we do the same types of events. It's just two totally different types of homes. The Sally House is more of a, I don't know if I want to say demonic because I don't like that word. But,
no.
And I've been there twice and I've not experienced that at all. But you come here and you hear, oh, the spirits are nice. And there are lots of spirits here. I'm not thinking aren't there. There's no competition if you ask me. I prefer to work together, and if someone stays at the Sally House, maybe they can stay at ours the next night, or vice versa. So I would say no competition. They're just two totally different types.
Good.
Two totally different types.
Good.
Yeah,
that's what I like to hear. There's too much competition in the paranormal world at times, and it's nice to see people working together rather than butting heads with each other. I like it. it. So we have this beautiful house, and if anyone doesn't know what it looks like, and they haven't seen the advert for this show, it really is. You've got to look it up. I mean, I know you guys have your own Facebook page.
Yes.
Don't you? Is that the Haunted 1889?
Yep, Haunted 1889 McInteer Villa.
Yep. Go and follow that if you don't already, so you can keep up to date with the house, because there's loads of information on there, some of which we're going to be talking about tonight. So, the reason it's called what it's called is because it was built for I suppose you could say, local businessman called John McInteer, who came over from Ireland as a young lad. I would guess probably around the potato famine time in the mid-1840s, but I don't know if you've had, because I went searching for his immigration records and I couldn't find them.
Either. I have tried and tried it. I've because of the name McInteer, some people spell it differently. And somebody had mentioned, or not really mentioned, but I read that in Ireland it might be spelled different than here, which I don't understand why it wouldn't come over, but I don't know. But then it's so hard to find. I've read somewhere that he came over in the early 1850s.
Okay, yeah, that would be about right then, because with here's a history lesson for you. When the potato famine hit Ireland in the sort of mid-1840s, a lot of families started trying to emigrate because they were starving. Because potatoes were the main dish for everything in Ireland, and this potato blight had hit, so they had no crops, they had no food. There was no sort of like global rescue program like we'd have now. So, we had a lot of them come into the UK. We had massive Irish immigration in that period, but you also notice as the years went on, as the family saved up. I think I was reading that something like it was about 1851 that it was, I can't remember how many thousands of pounds were spent on travelling out of Ireland, but it was literally trebled what it had been 5 years previously. So that would actually fit. But I searched on him for the census records to see what he'd been up to, because he was married to Alice, wasn't he, his first wife? Yes. Now, she was actually Irish.
That's what I read also. Irish, and I'm not sure if he met her in Ireland. I found out that they married in, I think it's Hamilton County, Ohio in 1856.
Yep.
I don't have information on her either, and have her maiden name of Connolly. I said she lived with her brothers in Ohio, but I can't find her brother's name. It's so difficult to find all this information.
It is. But she was younger. She was older than John. That's what
she was. Yeah.
Because I found the census for 1870 for him, and that's where different spellings of the names come up. I think it was spelt McInteer or something like that, but it's definitely him. And I found that they'd got married in 1857. He was born around 1830, 1831. She was born around 1827, 1828. Obviously, with census, they don't give the exact birth date. They give the age of the person at the time of the census. So there's always a bit of a, could be. But she was definitely Irish. And they had a daughter called Alice, who was born around 1860.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which that's a mystery to me also, because that's the only record I've seen with daughter named Alice, 10 years old, said born in Ireland. I don't know if that's because the parents were in Ireland, because I believe they were already in the United States before 1860. Well, they got married in 1856.
Yeah.
In Ohio. But there's no other record of the daughter.
No, I couldn't find any other for the sort of searching I was doing. There's a couple of other systems I couldn't actually get into because I'd have to go into our local library, which is limited access at the moment. But that was in the 4th ward, or Ward 4 of Atchison. They were living there. Then in 1880, there's no longer an Alice living with them, but a nephew called Patrick is living with them. Who I think was 16 in 1880. And that's when they're living on North something Street in the 3rd ward. And then by 1900, obviously, Alice has passed away, and he's now married to Anna Conlon, who was previously Anna, where is it? Donovan,
yes.
Yeah, and they have...
Good.
Sorry?
You are good. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. They have... there's a son living with them called Charles, it says his father was Irish, but he was born in 1888 in Canada. But Charles was obviously the son by her first husband, Peter, who she'd met and married in Montreal in Canada, and he'd died in 1889, so shortly after their little boy was born. But funny enough, Charles had taken the McInteer surname. He didn't stay, if for the census, he wasn't a Donovan, he was a McInteer. But then when I looked for him, what happened to him, I found him, and he was a Donovan, and sadly he died in 1922 at the age of about 33, which is quite sad, really, such a young age. Now, what I found also quite interesting was Anna was quite a bit younger than our John.
Younger. Yep.
Good lad. 24 years younger, in fact.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So, Irish charm and all that. That's all I can say. The Irish, they can charm the birds out of the trees, as they say. So it's the house itself, which was built around 1890. I believe.
Yep. It started in 1889 and finished in 1890.
Yep. And so poor Alice was only in there a few years because she died in the December of 1891. She was only in there a few years before he ended up 4 years later marrying Anna, and she moved in because she was a widow, as I mentioned. Her husband Peter, they'd been living in Montreal, in Canada. She had, I think, 3 sons with Peter, didn't she? Was it 3 sons? Yes. Yes, Peter, Frederick and Charles. Yes. But she'd married John. Sadly, her and John weren't together for very long because he passed away in 1902, in the July of 1902.
Yes.
Yep. So that's our first definite... So we've had 2 deaths so far in the house. We've had Alice, and then we've had John.
Before John passed away, Anna's mother, Anna, had passed away in the house in,
September 23rd of September, 1898.
Yes.
And her father had died a year later in the house.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so that's 4 now, 4 deaths up to that point we have had in the house. Anna doesn't remarry after John passes away, but her brother Charles moves in, along with quite a lot of other family members, by the looks of it.
Yes.
In 1910, the census says you got Charles. Well, there's Charles Jr., her son, from her first marriage. You've got her brother Charles, you've got a sister-in-law, I think it's either May or Mary, and then another brother, it says John.
It's John.
Yeah, living there. So it's starting to get a bit crowded, I should think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then in 1916, poor Anna passes away.
Yes. Yep.
Now, she was a bit of a celeb, though, wasn't she, in Atchison? She seems to have been... There's an awful lot of newspaper articles that mention that she'd been visiting this place, or she'd gone to this theatre production, or she was having lunch with this person.
Yes, I have read those too, yes.
Do we know why she was a sort of a bit of a... Is it to do with the fact her brother was an eminent lawyer, or...?
I wonder if it was. I'm not sure. Honestly, I have no idea.
Because it was interesting because there was nothing similar about Alice, John's first wife. She didn't seem to get the same sort of, even though he was a very well-known, he had always had adverts up for his saddlery business in the newspapers. He was a very well-known businessman in the area, but she didn't seem to have the same sort of publicity thing that Anna did.
Exactly. There's not much. I want to say the only thing written about his first wife, Alice, was when she passed away. I think that might be the only thing in the newspapers that I have read.
Okay. So then we sort of mentioned that Charles, the brother, the judge, the solicitor, he had it up until about he stayed in the house up until about 1925, which, as you say, is weird. If there was actually a daughter called Alice who didn't, so it makes me think she'd passed away at some point. It's just for some reason her records have not been digitized for whatever reason. And then between about 1925 and sort of roughly about 1950, it was, as we were saying, it was a rooming house. And then it was taken over by a wonderful sounding lady by the name of Isabel Altis.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. Now, she was there for about 16, 17 years?
Yes. Yep, from 1952 to 1969.
Yeah. And then the house was taken over after that by the chap who'd actually bought it out before Isabel passed away, one of her neighbours. And it kind of stayed almost like a bit of a ramshackle type home until you and your husband took it over.
Yes. Yep.
So that's a potted history. I tell you, I do try to do my research on places. Now, the question I want to ask, because one of the newspaper accounts I found was talking about, I thought it was Anna, but there's two sort of reasons for why she died. But one of them, has anyone ever mentioned having a sore stomach or an upset stomach in any parts of the house?
Yes, mostly in the basement, which is bizarre. But some people do feel like stomach cramps in the basement. Some have said in the attic also. I'm not sure which room Anna passed away in, but we have had people say that they have like stomach cramps.
Because that's interesting, because even though I think her cause of death is down as heart failure, there was a newspaper article from the Atchison Weekly Globe on the 7th of December 1916, where her doctor had consulted with a Dr. Bohan, who was a stomach specialist, because they couldn't work out why she had so much stomach pain.
Oh, see, I did not know that.
Yes! I did it! Full house!
I did not know that. I was actually just looking around for a pen to write that down. I'm like, what?
If I can find the article, I'll screenshot it for you and send it to you. But,
okay.
But yes, I mean, according to another article I found, she'd suffered from something called neuritis, which is an inflammation of the peripheral nerve, which could affect your stomach. But they thought she'd been surviving from that, and then she passed away due to heart failure quite young. She was only in her late 50s, wasn't she, when she she passed away again in the same house. But yes, according to an article in the Atchison Weekly Globe in December 1969, her regular doctor, had consulted with a stomach specialist called Dr. Bohan, and that's what made me wonder if anyone in the house had experienced some kind of stomach pain, because even though it doesn't say in the article the peripheral nerve could cause stomach pain, and I just wondered if anyone had ever experienced that, if it was some kind of if it's her trying to say to people, it hurt, this is how I felt. That's why I was asking the question.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Awesome.
I also passed away from, I believe, bowel obstruction. So that is, stomach issues also.
Yeah. Who was that? Sorry, who passed away from the bowel?
Oh, I'm sorry. Her mother, Anna.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it was that Anna then they're talking about. And no, she died before 1916, didn't she? Her mum died.
Correct.
1898, so yeah, so it must have been Anna Junior, as I'm sort of calling it. But yes, there was definitely so stomach, interesting.
Yes.
So we know that there's been a lot of deaths in the house, all of which appear to be natural, apart from the hanging that some psychics have picked up on. I couldn't find anything to validate that in all the newspapers and everything else.
Yeah, we couldn't either. Yep. All of them were natural except for, Charles. He didn't die naturally. But so Charles shot himself.
Right.
But the hanging, we've been told, like you said, from psychics or mediums, I haven't found any documentation either. So I sometimes will tell people when I give a tour or when they're doing overnights. Sometimes I just leave it out. I just let people, experience whatever they experience. So, because I like to have things that are actually documented.
Yeah, me too. I mean, The thing is with the hanging one, it could be something similar to like you get at Malvern Manor with the story of Inez, who people say they've seen her hanging in the sort of the wardrobe closet, whatever you guys would call it. And yet she never lived there or anything. She lived sort of up the road, but there's a chance she could have gone there for parties and things like that. So it could even be a spirit that someone else has brought in that's thought, I think I'm going to stay here and just show people what happened to me. And it could have happened half a mile up the road.
Exactly.
But yes, I'm one of those. I like to find proof for things. So what are some of your favourite, shall we say, paranormal experiences of the villa?
My favorite, let's see. I would say my favorite and least favorite would be the second floor. The entire second floor. I love it, and it creeps me out. But actually, right now, I'm at the villa, and I'm sitting in the room that we think Charles might have committed suicide in.
Right.
It's just peaceful and quiet right now. And I've been here for a couple hours today, and I haven't heard anything at all. But what makes me... I could describe it as like on a roller coaster, and you get all excited and you hear something and it makes you like scared and nervous, and once it's done, you're like, I want to do it again. Yeah. So that's how the second floor makes me feel. So that's my favorite, and like I said, also least favorite because it makes me uncomfortable. The steps are very loud, and you can hear them coming towards you or away from you. Those make me uncomfortable. The door handles may jiggle, and it sounds like someone's trying to get in the room that I'm in, or if I'm walking in the hallway, it's like someone trying to get out of the room and come into the hallway. That makes me uncomfortable. Other things like a door opening up doesn't make me uncomfortable. It's cool, but so those are my favorites.
I must admit that on the YouTube, there's some sort of like security cam type videos of things like that happening. Like you see on that floor, the door just opening, like you hear the door handle go. It's not just the wind has caught it and opened it. You actually hear it go as though somebody's pushing the door handle down, and the door opens by itself. And I think some of the voices that people have captured as well, that I was listening to some of the EVPs that had been captured by people. It definitely looks quite amazing. Did Charles leave a suicide note at all?
I don't believe he did. The newspaper article did not say he did. It just said that he had a headache and he went upstairs, or he took a headache pill and came upstairs. And his uncle Charles, who was downstairs at the time, heard a gunshot after about 5 minutes of his nephew Charles coming upstairs. So I don't think he did.
Right. So that would have been October 1922 then that Charles took his own life. It's tragic, really, isn't it? It's absolutely tragic.
So it's really sad.
Yeah, especially as even then, even only less than 100 years ago, it would have still been seen as a crime to take your own life. Nobody would have questioned why you did it. It was just, it's really very, very sad, very sad. So, you say that the second floor is very active. And
yes.
In most places you seem to we don't have basements much in the UK. So when somebody said, why does America seem so haunted? My normal quip as a British person is say, because everyone has basements. It seems to always be the basement that's haunted. Well, it does. Every time you watch one of the TV shows, it's like all the activity seems to be in the basement. So I quite like the fact that you say there's more activity on the second floor. Anyway.
That's what I find. A lot of people don't like the basement. It does make some people feel sick or nauseous. Some people say that they feel like all the emotions, like they want to scream, they want to cry, there's all the emotions at once. I used to be scared of the basement just because it's 7 rooms, it's dark, it's creepy, it's my husband describes it as Silence of the Lambs is what it looks like. I'm not I don't know what he's talking about because I don't think I've seen the movie. But
what? Oh dear! Come here, Clarice.
I need to go watch it.
You do need to watch Silence of the Lambs. It's a classic. It's a classic, definitely.
And maybe it's the second floor for me because I'm here more on the second floor and I experience more on the second floor. I don't really just hang out in the basement. So maybe that's why I think the second floor is the most active.
Okay. Well, I quite like the fact you say that because, like I say, normally whenever you watch any of the sort of American ghost hunting type programs, and I'm not going to name any names, it always seems to be the basement. But I always wonder, is it the basement because it does feel more claustrophobic, because it's naturally darker, it's naturally a bit dingier, it's easier to paint that kind of, and people do sort of psychologically think the bad things will always happen in the basement, and the main part of the house is fine. And I quite like the fact that you guys buck the trend on that one. I quite like that. But I think, if a property has got something going on in it, it's going to be everywhere. It won't necessarily just be in one spot. There just might be a concentration of energy in one spot. So the second floor, yes, I'll say to anyone, go and look up the villa on YouTube. You'll find loads of videos that people have put on there. There's some cracking ones of the security footage that Steph has supplied when there's nobody in the building, and honestly there is one of a door. You can hear the creak of the door handle as the door sort of opens, like someone's trying to peer around it. It's pretty impressive. Does the house ever give off we're talking about the Sally house, that some people say it's demonic and it's this and it's that. Does the villa ever give off a kind of bad juju vibe, or is it more of a we've had enough of you, go away, leave us alone type thing?
I think there's a handful. Now, I've spent the night at the villa by myself, quite a bit of times. It's uncomfortable to the point where I wear headphones. I have the TV on I have one room that I lock off just to myself when I do spend the night. And I will have the TV going. I have headphones on. I will talk to myself all night because I don't want to hear all the noises. There are a few times when I'm done, I'm going home. I can't take it. And that's when it's hard to explain, but it's when it's super quiet and you're not hearing anything or seeing anything or smelling anything, but you just know someone is right there.
Yeah.
And you just feel like they're in your personal space and they won't leave. And those are the times when I'm like, I'm going home. So I don't think we've had people cussed at, we've had people I was called a stupid, dumb B word,
Okay.
So, if that's worse, it's not going to be the first time I've heard that or the last, but that's okay. That's okay. I think that might be the worst.
Right.
That's happened. Some people say they were scratched. I don't know. I've never been scratched.
Mm-hmm.
I had an event here about a year and a half ago, and a girl felt like a stinging on her face, and she took a picture, and it looked like she had been slapped.
Okay.
But I figured if I haven't been slapped, maybe it was maybe, I don't know if she got slapped or not. Maybe she did. But I figured if they're going to slap anyone, it's probably going to be me. I'm kind of annoying.
But they might like you. I don't mean that to sound the way it did, Steph, but they might like you because they know you're the new owner. They know that you're taking care of the place. I mean, do we know what this girl was doing before she got...
I don't know. No.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that I have a bit of an issue with investigators is the way they talk to the spirits and goading them and acting like, well, as I would say in the UK, Billy Big Bollocks. You know, they act like there's something superior and there's something special, and they talk to them like they're a piece of dirt. And I kind of think, well, hang on, this is someone's home you're going into. Even if that person isn't a physical being anymore, if they love that place as much enough to want to stay there and look after it, they're not going to appreciate you walking in and being unpleasant. So if you know, it could have been that this person was being, and I don't know, and if this girl is listening, I do apologise. I am just making, just wondering. She could have said something that they found offensive, or she might have not been friendly or polite. And one of the things I always say when I've been in, especially if it's a private home that I've been into to do an investigation, I always say thank you before I leave. I'm kind of like, thank you for having me, like I would if I came round to yours for a cup of coffee, and I'd say thanks for having me before I left. You know, it's just having those manners, and it could be that, you know, someone was being rude or someone took offence, and yeah.
I completely like, I came in today and I didn't say anything when I came in, but I did come upstairs to, we used to have as a storage room, and I've found that something in there continues to scream at me. And I think I put it on my Facebook page. People have captured a little girl voice, guy screaming. And so, but I still go in there just like today. I walked in and I go, hi. I go, did you have a good night? Are you happy I left the door open for you? And then I shut the door.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I still say that. And when I left yesterday, I said, okay, I'm leaving for the evening. Have a good evening. And so maybe that's it. Because I know that, I think, and it could be me wanting it to happen. My dad passed away in April, and he was a big part of buying the house for me. And he was able to visit once, and I have his ashes here. And I went to one of the rooms where his ashes were, and I said, hi, Dad. I said, you know, I love you, and walked out. And I came back in, and my recorder had Stephanie, and the way he said it is like Stephanie.
Oh, wow.
And he also said, I love you. And it may not have been him. To me, it was him. But so I would hate for someone to come in and start saying stuff that was not nice or mean. And
exactly.
Yeah. Well, I totally get it. I say hi, bye. I say hi, Dad. You know, so I get it. I don't think anyone should come in and be, I guess, verbally abusive.
That's it. Well, yes, or goading. Or I this is a conversation I've had on many interviews that I've conducted, and I've been interviewed as well. Is that I think, you know, if these are interactive spirits that are sentient beings, not only will they appreciate a joke, they will appreciate laughter. You know, we all know if you're on an investigation, it goes a bit quiet and someone cracks a joke and everyone starts laughing. Pow! The activity seems to go up a notch, doesn't it?
Yes, they do. Yep.
Yeah, I got accused once of laughing at the spirits by doing that, and I was like, no. I said, I can guarantee if you could hear them, they're laughing too. You know, they who doesn't enjoy a laugh? And it's normally at my own expense that I'll crack the jokes. You know what I mean? I don't crack it at their expense. It's me. I crack it at my expense to get people laughing. But the same that I wouldn't be rude to them, you know, even if it was a person's house who maybe had got a bad reputation for something, I'd be more like, but why did you do it? What was your reason? Well, I think I have only been aggressive to a spirit once, and that was one in a fort that was punching all the women that came past his room. And I didn't like that. And I sort of pushed him to sort of explain through like the spirit box and things like that, why he was doing it. And I got it out of him, and he seemed to calm down. So, but it wasn't because I wanted a show. It was more like, you've got to stop hitting people, mate. You know, it's not everyone else's fault what your ex-girlfriend did. You know, but that's the only time I've ever, because I just think it's rude, it's impolite, and it's also going to make it a negative experience for the next person who goes in, because if they think, well, everyone coming in to talk to us is going to be rude, is going to be pushy, is just wanting to show off, they're not performing monkeys. You know,
exactly. And I think that they're actually a lot quieter if people are going to be rude.
Yeah,
I think that it seems like they're just like, okay, I'm just going to stand back here. They're not going to do anything at all.
Well, that's what I would do if I was in a group of people, physical people, and I knew a couple of them were quite rude. I'd just be stand back and, all right, I'm not having a part of this. I'm,
right.
You know,
exactly.
That's what I think isn't always. They're still human beings. They're still humans, albeit ethereal. If that makes sense. I can't think how to explain it.
Yes. Absolutely.
So, I mean, you mentioned that the second floor, sometimes if you're in there on your own, you've got your headphones on, you've got the door shut, you've got the television on, sort of thing. Has there been times when it has felt like you've come home compared to times when it's felt like, you mentioned that when it goes uber quiet and you think you're being watched is when you want to get out of there. But are there certain times when you think, this is home, this is why I bought here? Does that make sense?
It does. Well, yes and no, I guess. It feels like I've never been like obsessed with anything like, ever, but there's something about this house that I just absolutely just obsessed with it. I love it. I love coming here. And that's pretty much every time I come here. And when I give the tours and people see, you know, I think they can tell when I give the tours how much I love this house. But then there are times when I come here, and this was probably like 3 weeks ago. I came here, and it was like 11 o'clock at night because I forgot my makeup bag, and I was going to Dallas the next day, so I had to drive out here. And I came to the second floor, and something was just off, and I'm like, nope. And I got back in my car, and I went back home. And
okay.
So I mean, that was. I mean, so it does. I mean, obviously, I can't ask them to like, you're going to come out today. So there are times when I come here and I'm like, yeah, it's a pretty. I'm going home because it's uncomfortable. But just coming here like today, I was just working on my laptop, and it just feels. I just love it. I love looking around and seeing all the things that we've done and brought in. And I mean, I won't ever live here. But
see, I'd want to live there. I'd want to live there for a week.
It's nice. The house hates my dog. So it's hard to come here and bring I have a little Yorkie. Her name is Lucy, and we call her Lucifer because she's the devil. And
sorry.
And the house hates. I mean, seriously, we do. We named a room after her here. So if you go on Facebook and you see Lucy's parlor, it's because of our Lucy. And that's actually the door that opens up on its own, is Lucy's parlor. So
okay.
I bring her here very often.
Okay. Okay. But no, I would love to. I mean, I love on the videos that I've seen your energy. And the obvious passion that you have for the building, and the way you talk about it with such enthusiasm and energy and passion is great. And when you're recounting the history and stuff, and you say you're not a historian, well, you've done pretty darn well. As for I do this all the time, and you've done pretty well, if you don't mind me saying.
Thank you.
But it's so nice to see. One of the things I love seeing is like local history being embraced by people. Now, whether that's so that they can do a paranormal investigation and that's why they embrace it, or whether it's because it's a local person who's always driven past that building and has had the chance to buy it and has fallen in love with it, it's just so lovely to see that kind of preservation and that kind of keeping people's memories alive.
Yes.
Who may not have been famous, for want of a better term. It's all right, everyone knows I would hope most people know who Amelia Earhart was, but I guarantee most don't know she came from Atchison. But, you know, this sort of beautiful building that, and John was quite a pivotal figure in Atchison's sort of growth and history and everything else. It's amazing to see. Now, you mentioned that sometimes when the house goes uber quiet, you don't like it because you can feel there's someone watching, but they're not making a sound. Then there's no smell. Yeah. What is the most common thing that do people get the smells that people, you know, you can sometimes make, like somebody will suddenly smell a cigar and it's like, well, nobody here's smoking. Where's that come from? Or sounds, or do they see apparitions? What tends to be the sort of a common thing that seems to happen?
A common thing would be the footsteps. We have 2 sets of stairs. I think most of the footsteps, or actually all the footsteps I've heard, are on the main staircase. The footsteps are the most common. The let's see, growls. That's something that I might have heard once. I'm not sure if it's what everyone else has heard, but I've heard from a lot of people that they have heard something growl at them. And not like dog growl, not like, I'm not going to growl on here. I'm not going to do it.
Oh, go on.
I was about to, and I'm like, oh, don't do it.
Oh, go on. It's just you and me chatting. Don't worry, Steph. It's just you and me. Give us...
Okay. Well, I'll just do it. Oh, fine, I'll do it.
Go on.
But I was giving a tour to this lady, and all of a sudden, in my left ear, I heard, and I was like, is that a growl? I was kind of excited, but I don't know if that's because it didn't. I can't believe I just did that. Okay.
Hey, I have the power, love. I have the power.
Oh my God. So that a lot of people have reported, and I hope if that's what they've heard, that's, I hope it was scarier than that. But, so growls, let's see, people being, voices. Voices are a big thing. They've heard a lot of kid voices, a little girl voice saying hi or giggling, or somebody recorded something about a week and a half ago and they sent it to me and I just posted it, and it's a little girl saying, bye, please don't leave. So a little girl is around here, I think, quite a bit. Male voices, I think mostly the voices and footsteps and that wonderful growl.
That is brilliant. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. The stairs always do seem everywhere. Seem to be because it's kind of, you know, it's how you get from the bottom to the top, isn't it? So there'd have been constant. There's always traffic up and down stairs, and I know one investigation I was on in an old house, I literally spent about 2 hours and I just sat on the stairs. I was like this little sort of waif sitting on the stairs with my recorder and a notebook, and you did feel people come past. I felt things go past, like I felt like a brush on the side of my face, like someone had walked past me and all that kind of thing. And yeah, it does, they do seem to be very a very busy type place. But I like the growl. When you heard it, okay, I'm not going to ask you to do it again, Steph, don't worry. I appreciate you pushing through that pain barrier and growling for me. It may have to go in the advert for the show, that if you want to hear Steph growl, listen to this show. You never know. I've got to get back on track now. Did it feel ominous, or did it feel grumpy, or did it just feel that someone was trying to get your attention?
It felt a little grumpy.
Okay.
And I asked the lady, I go, because it was just the two of us here, and we were in the kids' room, which is on the second floor. I was telling her what people experience in that room, and then I heard it, and I said, was that you? And she looked at me like I was nuts. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm just hearing things. So then we go downstairs, we're standing in the dining room, and it did it again. And she goes, I heard that. I'm like, thank you. So it did it twice in two different locations. But it sounded like either, like it was kind of like angry, I guess, but not, well, not just like pissed, but just like maybe I was telling something wrong, or like I'm not getting a story right, like that kind of like irritated.
Yeah. So because a lot of people, I've again, we'll mention the demonic thing, but a lot of people say when they hear a voice, like it's a demonic thing. And I'm sort of like, well, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just a spirit. That's the only sound that they've learned how to make, because we assume that spirits can speak to us, but it must we don't know, and it's it like you say, it could just be someone who's like, oh, they're telling it wrong again. Yes. That wasn't what that room was used for when I was here. It would be interesting. Exactly. It would be interesting if you could work out, like, next time it happens, think, what did I say 5 minutes beforehand? And make a note and see if there's any similarities in what's being said at the time.
Yes. On that note, I was giving a tour to two younger girls. They were like 16. And we were in the room I'm in right now, which is, we call it the library. But we also have a mannequin in a World War I uniform because Charles was in World War I. We think he might have committed suicide in this room. And I was telling them that this is the room we think he might have committed suicide in. And 2 of the 3 of us heard yes very clearly. And so I was like, well, maybe, so that does make complete sense. It was that he was confirming this. Maybe I am telling the story right in this room, at least.
Okay, so Charles fought in World War One.
Yes, he was not in battle. I think as soon as he went to France, he contracted the Spanish flu and he was sick the entire time.
Right.
And so he was from 1918 until 1919. Then he came home and he never got over his symptoms. Yeah. So that's why he took life in 1922.
Yeah. I was wondering if there was some kind of link to it, whether it was shell shock or some kind of guilt that he never got to do anything or whatever it was. But yeah, obviously Spanish flu hit them very, very hard. I wonder if then it's, let's say it's Charles who was grumpy that the story wasn't being told right, or that his mum and stepdad's stories weren't being told right, or...
Right. I have one for that. Somebody had mentioned, there was a team here, I want to say about a year ago, and they said that they kept getting the word disrespectful. And I was like, well, the mannequin that I have, the pants didn't fit his legs. So he just has like the jacket, but it looks like just a half mannequin. And so I was like, well, is he mad because I don't have the entire uniform on him? And they're like, well, maybe even if a pin is turned a little bit, that's respectful. And somebody brought up, if I'm reminding him of World War I, and that is why he committed suicide, then that is disrespectful. So he might be angry. I don't know if it's Charles, but there is something or somebody who screams a lot up here. And as I said that, I have the little cat balls, the little cat toys.
Yep.
It's lighting up on the table here next to me.
What we're talking?
I don't know if it means, as we're talking, yes.
Wow.
I don't know if it means I'm saying it wrong. Right. I don't know.
Wow. Well, maybe ask. Wow. I've never done this. I've never done a show almost while I'm and an investigation at the same time. So this is a first for me. You've given me a first here, Steph.
Yay.
I'm quite excited now. Ask Charles if he. I can't think how to ask this. Did he take his own life because he couldn't see a way forward?
Charles, if you're in here, did you take your own life because you couldn't see forward? Were you sad and depressed? Could you light the ball up? And nothing. So that wasn't. If it's not, it's either not Charles or. But it could be that he doesn't like his uniform being on a mannequin. He'd rather it was on a hanger, maybe. That's possible too. Yes.
Because they would have been on nice wooden hangers, wouldn't they, in their time?
Yes, that's true.
Could be that. Could be that.
Could be. Yes.
But wow! The fact the ball was going off as we were talking, I'm excited about that. Because it let you in on a little secret. My nickname when I do an investigation is the military magnet. If I go anywhere where there's a military link, the activity seems to go up a level.
Oh my God!
I have no idea why, because I've never been in the military. But as a historian, I'm very interested in World War I and World War II history. Excuse me. So the theory is that because I might understand what they're trying to tell me or show me.
Okay, ball's going off right now. It's going off. And here's the thing: I actually picked the ball up off the table and I put it on the table. The uniform is on. It just started going off as you were telling your story.
Okay. I think maybe Charles wants me to look into his. Would Charles like me to look into his World War One type events? Is that what it is? He wants me to look into it for him. Look into where he should have been, the regiment he would have been in. There's maybe something happened to his regiment. Maybe they got wiped out. The regiment he was due to be in. I'm wondering if it's something like that he's trying to tell us.
He was in the 88th Field. Hang on. Oh, goodness. They were called the Blue Devils. And I know there's another Blue Devils for World War II. But World War I, there was the Blue Devils. It was the 137th Field Artillery and 88th Division. Or I might have that backwards.
Okay. I'll look it up. You can tell Charles I will look it up for him. And see what I can find going forwards if that's what he's trying to tell us, because it's obviously something linked to his uniform, and I just wonder if maybe the group he was supposed to be with got massacred and he's never recovered because he wasn't with them because he was ill. I've seen that kind of thing, and they want to tell that story. They want that story to. I don't know. I'm just. This has kind of thrown me a little bit because I've never had this happen before whilst I've been doing an investigation, doing an interview. But I will rest assured, Charles, I will look into it. I will look into it for you and see what I can find. I will, I promise. So, I'm completely thrown now. This doesn't. Anyway. I really am completely thrown now. Changing tack. Who do you think is the perfect type of investigator for the house? If someone was going to come in and investigate the house, what could they do that would make them perfect for the house?
I think somebody who is patient, somebody who really wants to know their story, who isn't here to. I mean, we've had people come in and say, "You have anybody been scratched? Anybody been bitten?" Yeah. No, I don't think that people. I think that people who are truly interested in who's here, and not coming into it with looking for how creepy it can be. I think wanting to know their story. That's the perfect investigator. Yeah. We had about 2 years ago come in, and I was giving a tour like I always do before I leave for the evening, and I could tell that they weren't so interested in my story. And I'm like, oh gosh, I must be losing it because I must be boring. So I just kind of left, and then I ran into them a few months later, and they told me they had so many experiences, but the only reason they rented the house was because they wanted to talk to their friend who passed away, and they did. And so it's people like that. They just came in and they were very respectful, and I think that just talking to their friend. So those are like the perfect investigators, just coming in to hear someone's story, and being patient and not expecting like, hey, light the ball up, and if it doesn't light up, just like, let's go to another room. So yeah. Okay.
So if someone wanted to book to come into the house, how do they go about doing it?
They can, they can call me. That's how we have a calendar on my website, which is 1889 McInteerVilla.com.
Yep.
And there's the calendar, and they can pick a date and then give me a call. My phone number is on there, and then we just mark it off.
Okay.
And the date, and the house there is from 3 p.m. until 10 a.m. next morning.
Wow.
I do a little different than other places. We do have Wi-Fi. I also I don't leave a key. I give them a door code, which is the last 4 digits of their cell phone number, and they have that till the next day. I also supply tons of coffee. I like people, and we do bottled. We supply bottled water. We supply sodas. We have a microwave people can use or bring food in. We have refrigerators. So things like that. We want people to feel at home. We tell people sit on anything. lay on anything. It's your home for the next, however many hours. Wow. Treat it like it's your home. We want people to feel comfortable and just, make it theirs for the evening.
Brilliant. So the best way to get hold of you, obviously, people can contact you through your Facebook page. They can contact you through the website, which we'll put all the links onto the Haunted Histories page as well, for those of you who've listened to this podcast. But thank you so much for your time, Steph. I have really enjoyed talking to you. I do apologise again to everyone listening for the sort of Skype glitching. I'm presuming it's Skype and not Charles affecting it. Although that has happened to me before. I have had, in the minute I sort of spoke to them 2 days later, it's absolutely fine. But who knows? Not everything is paranormal, but the fact that you've been getting the activity whilst we've been talking, there is something going on there. Maybe my military magnet is still working. Who knows? But yes, thank you so much for your time, and please do keep remembering these people who live there and looking after that beautiful house.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to keep my tiara on the day, though, to let you know.
Say what, sorry?
I'm going to keep my tiara on the rest of the day, too. Just letting you know.
Okay, will do. Well, I told you she was awesome. I told you she had loads of energy. That is the wonderful Stephanie Neal, who owns the McInteer Villa. And there you go. We got activity whilst I was talking to her. I didn't expect that. I didn't know that was going to happen. Hence, I was a bit lost for words. But isn't it awesome? Well, I hope you've enjoyed that podcast. Obviously, they're all on Paranormal UK radio for you to listen to. This has been Haunted Histories. If you don't follow me or follow Haunted Histories already on Twitter and Facebook, best you get on that and start following us and see all the extra stuff that we put on there. History, mystery, other people's articles, you name it. We just want to, promote the message and get people asking questions and learning new stuff, whether it be paranormal, whether it be history, or whether it be a combination of the two. But anyway, that's been me. I'm Penny Griffiths Morgan. Thank you for listening. Have a good evening. Sleep tight. And don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.